We'll call the meeting to order. Thank you for your attendance. We'll go around and introduce ourselves. We have guests. I'm Alan Rasmussen, and we'll start with you.
Matthew Gwynn, Cushing County.
Okay.
Austin Wallen, Cushing and Soil and Water.
Pete Kaler, City Councilor.
Jake Dill, Mayor.
Paul Nevenin, Director, Keda.
Mike Hanson, I represent the rural area of Cooch.
Ricky Roach, Cooch County Commissioner.
Adam McIntyre, Cooch County Commissioner.
And Darcy. All right, thank you.
Oh,
You got one more.
Yeah.
we got two more.
Linda Ponting, I'm with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. I'm a wetland specialist and I cover Cushing County and counties to the west
All right.
and south.
Welcome.
And Kyra.
And Alan, I'm here too.
Roger.
Good morning. Representative Scrava here.
Good
I'm listening
morning.
in this morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Representative. And Tara.
Kyra Asbargen, keda Administrative Assistant.
All right. Anyone else? All right, first item is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do you have any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Next item is the minutes from November 17th.
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion, additions, deletions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is the treasurer's report, Treasurer Taylor.
All right, first one I have today is the keda financials. There's no transfers in or out, and everything seemed to be in order, so I recommend approving.
Any questions of Treasurer Taylor? All right, we have a motion by the treasurer, which does not require a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Those recused? Okay, thank you. Continue, please.
Yes, cold weather testing, same thing, no transfers, everything seemed to be in order. I'd recommend approving.
Yes, Director Nevenin.
Mr. Treasurer, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of clarifications. You'll note, yeah, we are in full swing. So there are a couple under JLR, couple large bills. Most of that is directed at their efforts at providing more EV charging. So you'll see Kennedy Electric, all of that effort is in support of their electric vehicle charging. So that has been, monies have been applied from JLR specifically. That's why you see it under JLR. So that expense is covered. And then there's Sabra LeBrassier Canfield, which is Sabra Jackson. That's her on-site and traffic control, 7195. The rest are on page 4 are typical monthly bills, but as you can see, we are in full swing, so the numbers reflect that. So, but we're off and running, and we've got, I think, 45 people on the ground right now, so it's very busy over there.
Any questions of Treasurer Taylor or Director Nevenin? All those in favor of acknowledging the treasurer's report for cold weather testing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
But before we move on, see as we're still in the treasurer's part, I just want to make a comment and a question for the group was brought to my attention, or our attention, at the city council meeting last night by Mr. Eric Strand that there's a vote of no confidence we consider from the city council, other than the mayor, I believe, regarding our financial abilities as a council and our administration and maybe not transparency. And I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to know that was put out there by Mr. Eric Strand. He's even suggested that we have citizens group look at the financials. He's so concerned, which as I sit here, knowing the history of this organization and others, I find kind of amusing. But that being said, I want to make sure with this information, you're all still comfortable with me doing the treasurer's report and writing the checks and stuff like that.
Okay.
For whatever we
Any
redo
comments?
our officers.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have, just so you know, no concerns about, from my perch, anything that's going on with the books of keda with you as the treasurer or us as a group. So, just to get that on the record.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I just wanted it out there, so because you know how things work.
Any comments, questions? Thank you, Treasurer Chair. Next item is the wetlands discussion. Director Nevin.
Mr. Chair, if I could, by way of introduction, and I really appreciate our guests being here today, and Linda from coming from Bemidji and having to rent a car in the snow. But appreciate your being here. And around this table over the years, we've talked about the many challenges of economic development in all of its forms here in Couchiching County, and there are many. And wetlands being just one large piece of many large pieces. But we have talked over the years about wetlands, and we have had various development issues arise because of wetlands. Not because partly because it's educational. People have to understand about what wetlands are, what the process involves, who the contact people are, and it's a large subject area that requires a certain amount, a fair amount of technical understanding, and then obviously there's cost involved with dealing with wetlands as well. So it's a subject area that is I think always in need of additional education and attention, and so people understand how it works. And we are blessed up here in Cooch. I brought my map behind you here. That's from 1980, from NRI. I believe, Commissioner Hanson, you were probably involved in that. They did a peat study in Cooch County, and the white areas on that map are fens, bog, peat areas. So you can see we are blessed with a lot of wetlands in Cooch County. And I say blessed because, well, we have a lot of them. And they're valuable. The most valuable real estate per acre is not on Rainy Lake or Rainy River or Big Fork. It is wetlands. And we can get into some of that. But I wanted to keep this at a very kind of high level. Just again, and appreciate Linda. She brought some slides, and we have our Cooch soil and water person and Matt here as well, because there are multiple jurisdictions that work together on this, as well as the city of International Falls. So with that, I will turn it over to Linda, and thank you again.
Sure, no problem. A little background on me. Like I said, I'm the wetland specialist for this area. I've been here in Cooch for 3 years, but I was here in Cooch 10 years ago for several years out of the Duluth office, and now I'm out of the Bemidji office. I kind of did some rotating, and I've pretty much covered the entire state except south of Mankato. So I covered the metro for 15 years, then I went up to Duluth, then I came to St. Cloud and covered all of West Central and the south areas all the way down to Rock County, all the way up to, and now I cover out of Bemidji, and I cover the West Central, that northwest part of the state, the Red River Valley. So I go all the way down to Wadena and Hubbard, Beltrami here, Lake of the Woods, and then straight west, all the way to North Dakota. So it's quite a large area I have, which is fine. And obviously, there's a lot of wetlands in this area, and some states, some counties have done more manipulation than others have. So there's different regulations for those counties that have a little more of an activity of drained wetlands and like more in the Red River Valley. But what my agenda is, so what Paul wanted me to do. How do I get this over? Oh, do I have to hit it? Move it over. Okay, how do we go forward? Maybe I just have to use my mouse. That works. So basically what he wanted me to let you know is like, what is a wetland? And wetlands are different. They're not all the same. So that's kind of the biggest question and the biggest, what do people think? Well, I don't have a wetland on my property. Austin and Matt, they hear it all the time. Yeah, you might. So I'm going to go through what that is. What are the different classifications of a wetland? What are the state regulatory programs that cover the entire state? So I'm familiar with the Wetland Conservation Act, but there's also some others that are with the DNR and the Corps of Engineers that I'll just mention. I'm not really going to get into them, but we are aware of them as agencies and as staff in the county, what needs to be done. So, and then like the ins and outs of the Wetland Conservation Act, and that is the state wetland law that has been around since January 1992. It was approved by bipartisan legislature back in 91, basically because of all the concern of all the drainage of wetlands that were done in the 80s when it was dry. Little history, I've been doing this for 25 years. So and then it was with the Soil and Water Conservation District prior to that. So I've almost been there since the inception of the Wetland Conservation Act. So I realized that there's counties in the northern part of the state when the Wetland Conservation Act first came in 1992 that said, we're not doing it. And you guys were one of them. Beltrami, Lake of the Woods, probably Cass, Itasca. They said, we're not going to do this because we have wetlands here. This law was written as it was in 92, written to restore wetlands that were, regulate wetlands on farm fields. The farming organizations had a lot of pull in this in the development of it, so they got a lot of exemptions, but also did the forestry. Forestry did too. So in mid-90s, 94-ish, I want to say, the legislature revised the statute, the Wetland Conservation Act, and put in some de minimises for basically allowing the northern counties a little more flexibility than other counties in the state. So then the counties adopted the Wetland Conservation Act, and they administer through the city of International Falls here and at Matt's office with the environmental services. So, and I help them because I represent the state, help them administer, and Austin with the Soil and Water Conservation. He also works with the city, so the two of us work with the city with Kelly, and the three of us work with the rest of the county. So either way, you're always going to get Austin and me.
And Whitney.
And Whitney, yeah, and Whitney too.
Whitney Sims.
Is that called the TEP?
Yep, that's called the Technical Evaluation Panel. So basically, we give recommendations to the LGU. And I think I got a little bit of that when I get to the ins and outs of the Wetland Conservation Act. Basically, we don't make the decisions. We give the recommendations to the LGUs, the city, and the county, and they make the decision based off our recommendation. So, then I do that. I'm also the TEP member. We call them TEPs, TEPs, in the rest of the rest of my counties. So each county has 3 people that represent themselves. So we're not out there making our decision ourselves. So, but we'll get into that, a little bit of the ins and outs. So basically, what is a wetland? The Wetland Conservation Act has adopted the Corps of Engineers Wetland Delineation Manual, and there's been some revisions to it, but they take a 3-parameter approach. So the definition is those areas inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater at a frequency and duration sufficient to support, and under normal circumstances do support, the prevalence of vegetation adapted to live in saturated soil conditions, and soils that also look, the picture on the right, you see that, and we'll go through a little bit of the soils. So you can see Austin and I, Matt and Whitney, we're digging holes. That's what we're looking for to see if it's a wetland or not. And so basically you need the 3 parameters. You need the hydrology, and we'll go through each of these individually. You need the hydrology, you need the vegetation, and you need the soils. You got a wetland. If you don't have one of them, you don't have a wetland. It's different on farm fields because obviously they're plowed. There's different. It could have vegetation if they did plow it. So there's some things that there's problem areas that they're considered problem areas because they don't use this approach. But there's conditions of what's happened on the site. Is it normal circumstances? So it's basically a wetland is those three criteria of a wetland. Again, we'll go through each of these individually. Hydrology. So they're inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater at a frequency and duration, and the technical standard is 14 consecutive days during the growing season. So what that means is here's my arm, my left arm is the ground, and you got water within a foot of the surface. You need it for 14 consecutive days. You don't have to have standing water to be a wetland. So it's within that foot for 14 days, typically spring. In the rest of the year, it could be dry. But, the vegetation will show with those other indicators, and the soils will show those other indicators that, you've had hydrology substantially within the surface. A lot of it depends on the type of soil. Sands, clays, mineral soils are all different. Peat are different, so they're all different soils. We look at all those differences. But that's a pretty general and easy approach. It's just you don't need the ducks flying off to be a wetland, which a lot of people think. And we get it. We understand that. So I might go through this kind of fast. So if you have any questions, just stop me because I talk fast. And vegetation, obviously, it's got to be the hydrophytic vegetation. The wet area is sufficient to support, under normal circumstances, the prevalence of vegetation that's been adapted to saturated soil conditions. And the indicator, so under the Corps of Engineers manual, we look at the facultative, which is FAC, occurs in wetlands and not wetlands. The facultative wetland mostly occurs in wetlands. They may occur, but they may not be as prevalent. And an obligate, our wetlands almost always occur in wetlands. They will not be in the uplands. So when we look at vegetation and we do a delineation, we look at what's dominant. What are the dominant ones? If the dominant is only one obligate and the rest are in the facultative upland, you probably don't have a wetland. You don't have veg. So there's a little bit of scientific look that has to determine whether or not where the vegetation is. And sometimes, like you said, it's mowed. They seed it down to bluegrass. Well, you almost got to not consider that, and you have to look outside the adjacent areas and stuff like that. So what is under normal circumstances? And again, this is all, and there's a national plant list that has pretty much every plant listed in the country. So you just look at the Midwest, which is, the area here. So obviously, if it's a lot of facultative plants, which could be the willows are actually obligate, and alder are obligate, and maybe fact W. Reed canary is more of a facultative because they will grow in both. They will grow in upland and wetland. Popple in this area, in this part of the state, is a facultative upland. It's not a wetland. Black ash is wet, and I got some examples and some pictures of it. So there's tests, by looking at what's out there on the landscape, what it is on normal circumstances. So you need to know veg. When you do it. And obviously, once you do it up here and get familiar, and Austin's gone to training, Matt and Whitney had gone to training, and so have I. We put on training for staff to identify these. But sometimes you get an oddball. We had a picture of a white pine in the middle of a wetland. White pine is an upland plant, an upland tree. But it could be under it was stunted. It didn't grow very well. There was other circumstances why it wasn't a nice, full-grown white pine. So there's some anomalies, but we also take that they're not dominant, so we look at dominance. Soils, again, sufficient to support under normal circumstances. They will support the vegetation under saturated conditions. And you'll see, and I got some pictures here, you'll see the red. That's called mottling. That's rust. So that means the water has sat there long enough. And these are within the first, like the one on the left is within a foot of the surface. They've sat there long enough to have that area show the rust, and we look at how much of it is. Is it only 5%? Is it 60%? How much rust? So those tell us a lot if we don't have the hydrology or even the veg. So soils also creep up, but then like I said, you need those other parameters to draw the line in the sand where the wetland boundary is. And these are based off of all right, where's my mouse? The Corps of Engineers adopted what's called the field indicators of hydric soils in the United States. And there's just that, and they update them regularly for the different kinds of soils. Peat is in there, peat soils, histosols, sands. So each one has a different requirement to meet. It's like a recipe. You have to follow if it meets it or not. I'm not a soil scientist, but if you see a lot of modeling like that, we call it modeling. You got hydric soils. So when they do delineations, like for the city or even for the county projects, that's what they'll have on their data sheets with that area to help draw where the line is of the wetland. So, and we provide training to the SWCDs and the counties and even consultants. So like I said, Kelly's Bolton and Mink has been there to the training, and I've worked Bolton and Mink for years. So they've gone to all the training to provide what they need to look at and stuff like that. So, and obviously they gear here, so they're familiar with what you guys have here. I mean, I might not be able to do a delineation down in southern Minnesota because I focus on this stuff, here. So, or the red clays in the Duluth area, which are not fun because I've been there. So in Minnesota, there's several classifications of wetlands. One of them is a Circular 39, and this is from the Corps of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So you see these on the NWI that basically indicate, if you can read it, it's kind of small, PEMIF means clustering, emergent, so they meet things that mean wetlands. So PUB, I can't remember what that one is. There's forested, PFO. There's even some that have like an X after it, like they've been excavated ponds. X or D, they'll have D's on at the end. That means they've been drained. So the NWI on the DNR website is where a lot of these are from, and the county uses those.
And guys, just to give you a little, National Wetland Inventory is NWI. So when people ask questions about land and inquire in our office about these kinds of questions, we have a link to the National Wetland Inventory on our website that allows them to look at their property or the property in question. Maybe it's something they're looking to buy, and that gives them a 10,000 foot view of whatever somebody did many years ago to create the National Wetland Inventory.
Yep.
It's not a perfect mapping system. It just gives them an idea.
Yeah, and they were updated, I want to say, about 5 years ago, so they're a lot more accurate than they were before that. Because obviously the imagery and stuff is a lot better than what it was when these were done in initially the 80s, I think. But then they've been updated. But also what a landowner, what Austin and Matt would tell people is, the soil, you guys have your soil survey. So go look at the soil survey, and then the NWI, kind of overlay, you can overlay the both of them or contours and stuff like that to give an idea, like I said, the 10,000 foot view of what it is. It's hard in some counties, and you get further west, it's all hydric soils. Red River is almost 100% red, hydric soils, but they've been drained. So that's the anomaly over there, they've been drained. So, and here they haven't, in some cases, or attempted to be drained. The state also has the Circular 39, which is types. So sometimes you hear types of wetland. A type 1 wetland is basically ones that typically are little in the farm fields that are nuisance ones in the spring. They're probably the last field that gets plowed. They're also floodplain wetlands. So they're based off type, and they get wetter as you go down. Type 2, reed canary, sedges. You can still walk through it in July and August and probably the rest of the year, but in the spring, you're going to get your feet wet. Type 3s as a cattails. So typically cattails, a foot of saturation above the surface. Type 4s are the deeper wetlands. Type 5s are even deeper yet. But so to be a wetland, anything less than 8.5 feet deep. Once it gets deeper than that, it might be a DNR protected wetland. So that's kind of where the boundary is between the jurisdiction of the Wetland Conservation Act and DNR. Type 6s are the alder and willows, scrub shrubs we call them. And 7s are bogs, black ash swamps, and 8's the bogs too. So 7 and 8 are probably more what you guys have up here. And I got some pictures of it that show what it looks like out in the field, probably taken up here in the St. Louis County area, something. So like there's another classification that we look at, the Agers and Reed, which is basically combination of all of them. That maybe there's like 13, I think, different. Is that what it is? 12 or 13? Deep marsh, shallow marsh, fresh wet meadow. They're basically based off types, and the types are put in there. So I think the legislature a couple years ago with the new statute changes, we got rid of the types. And we've adopted the Agers and Reed. So it's very similar. Only it's just maybe instead of 8 types, there's maybe 12. So. And again, we're looking at what's called the HGM, which is hydrogeomorphic, basically landscape. How are they sitting in the landscape? And that's pretty new, so we're just getting training on that. So again, wetland types. So where do you think the line, I guess I should have gone backwards. Where do you think the line is, like right there, maybe? Or does it go all the way to the cattails, or is there another line in between there, do you think? There is. And then, so you got 3 different types of wetlands, and you got upland. So you got the upland area, so basically the area to the left in the blue doesn't meet the conditions of a delineation of a wetland. Down closer to the lake, it probably toe of slope, or probably is getting further, the contours are flattening out and getting towards the water. You got a type 2. It's more sedges and those types of vegetation, and type 3 are the cattails, and then 4 is obviously the open water. So you got 3 different types of wetlands in it, potentially in each. You have multiple different kinds. Kind of what?
And a golf course in behind.
Yeah, looks like that. Look, a nice golf course. I like trees. Here's another one. This is, you might see some in the southern part of the county, wetland type. It's in a field. That would probably be a delineation of a wetland. And so when we look at those types of wetlands that have been cropped every year, there's a different way to do the delineation. It's called offsite, because you got corn out there. It could be a dry year. We look at historical photography of normal precipitation years. And did they crop it? Was it cropped? Did it show drown out like this particular field did? And then if it did, we count that as a hydrology. They need more than 50% of these hits to be. So it's a little bit different when it's in the cropland, how we delineate, because it's altered so much. But you got really good historical photo evidence and antecedent precipitation, basically, to find out if it's a normal year. So we've been out in areas where... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, a question on this, that farm field.
Yep.
So the farmer, come spring, he brings his tiller out, and he tills a lot more soil in those low spots. And over the years, they see how to fix their problem from getting too wet.
Right. Put in.
How do you go back and say, hey, you guys weren't supposed to do that, or it's farmland? I mean, it changes on gully washes and stuff like that,
Yeah, that's what the historical aerial photography is so beneficial. We look at the 10 most recent years. So we don't look back at what it was in the 80s. We don't look back because those were a lot of drought areas. I mean, we look back at the most recent years that we can find, and we need at least 5 out of the 10 photos we find. 10 of them have to be normal precipitation years. Do we have 100% of them every year? We may be missing a year or two. We go off Google Earth, the county flies, FSA, the federals, they fly some areas. So it's kind of a moving year because it's the most recent years we can find.
Because I think the other thing that my observations are, let's say the person that owns this land right here right now wants that, and then it sells, and then a new farmer takes over. and the new farmer, and you got your historical photos, and this farmer's like, well, that guy didn't do anything with the land. I'm doing something with the land. Why are you punishing me? You know, and there's this, and I know we have a case that if this is feeding like a drainage, and that drainage needs that water, and then they impede it, I can see saying, hey, can we somehow get some more water into that drainage, or maybe we don't want the water in the drainage, you know, going by someone's house or whatever.
Right.
And still maintain the in my opinion, the primary wetlands, the where the animals everyone uses to move through, and the human can still farm.
Right.
So
No, I get it. Like last year in 2024, the legislature changed some statutes for under the agricultural exemptions. And if, say it did sell and the new landowner wants to farm this, there's potential more exemptions available for them to be able to drain it and be completely legal on it. But they have to meet these certain requirements to be able to do it. Like it has to have a certified wetland determination on it, which in this part of the state, there's not many of them. So he would still, under normal farming practices, you can get in there, but you can't drain or fill or excavate. Well, you can excavate now. So, yeah, I mean, is it a violation if they wanted to drain it? Well, I don't know yet. They'd have to provide a lot more documentation for it, and that's part of the stuff that, you know, Matt, Austin, and I we look at.
So what do you say about this? I'm going to use this as an example because it's actually a pretty good example. The farmer goes in and tiles that area, and now there's no more wetland.
Right.
How do you guys react to that, or what do you do with that?
So the legislation that got changed in 2024, the farmer has to have what's called a certified wetland determination, which is done by the Natural Resource Conservation Service, not us, and it has to meet an indicator on their map saying prior converted. If it doesn't have that prior converted label, he's not eligible for that exemption. Then he might be then potentially he'd be in violation, where we would tell him you got to put non-perf tiled in there and keep those wetlands there with setbacks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And prior to the rule change in 24, what could they do?
Yeah, prior to the rule change, there was the agriculture exemption. If that field on the right was cropped, 6 out of 10 years prior to 1991, when the Wetland Conservation Act took effect, if it attempted to be cropped, it could have been drowned out. They might not have got a crop on it. They just went through, but it drowned out. They were exempt. So they could have got it then. And there's another one for 8 out of 10 most recent. But that's gone. They're gone. They're gone now. The 2024 legislation relied heavily on the Natural Resource Conservation Service's designations of these fields, which unfortunately in this part of the state, a lot of landowners don't have any. Have these done, and they take over a year to get done by the feds. Which, if anybody's planning on doing any type of drainage on a cropland, on fields, do it now. Go talk. No, don't do the drainage. Go talk to. Sorry.
Pretty slow mover. Pretty slow mover.
Talk to NRCS. There's a form to fill out at FSA to basically say I want to drain these areas, and then NRCS will do their thing to determine whether or not what classification is, and they look at best drain condition. They look all the way back to the 30s, whatever photos they have available. Do we all agree with all of them? Not necessarily, but that's how it is. But if it had been all wooded, and then you get a PC, if it's always been wooded and never cropped, you're not eligible for that exemption. So there's certain criteria they have to meet to get that exemption. But they're behind a year on doing these certified determinations. Minimum of a year. And if you're not in the federal farm program, they're not doing them. Because they don't have the staff. They're so far behind. And you've probably been sending a lot of them to them.
So most of our-
My brother-in-law works for the NRCS, and
Yeah.
his area is in the Red River Valley. So
Yeah.
I've heard
He knows,
about,
Mm-hmm. yeah.
But they try to pay farmers to leave the wetland areas. They buy it and give them, an exemption on something. One, to
They might-
be able to, keep one and drain the other couple.
Well, and so yes, so what he's saying is there are options if the landowner wants to come in here and it doesn't have a certified determination. He may have to go buy credits, wetland credits, to be able to drain it, and that's probably so. Credits have been established throughout the state for agricultural purposes, and he could do that. He'd have to apply to the county to do it, and have NRCS approve it, because you don't want to jeopardize, if they are in the farm program, you don't want to jeopardize their farm payments. So,
How expensive are farmland credits?
for egg banking, which is only farmers can go buy, so it has to be a farmed area that they're doing. I want to say about $12,000 an acre. So if you're impacting an acre, it's $12,000. So.
Because I've at our Ely Airport, we extended it. It was up in the 90 to 120,000 an acre.
Because that's not egg bank. That's regular standard bank. Yeah. Okay.
So they're being somewhat fair to a farmer. Farmers don't have unlimited funds for this kind of stuff. And again, I just wish we could all look at the land as a whole, and instead of applying the law, very specific to this one spot.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how does it fit the whole ecosystem? How can we work together and get this wetland so it stays what we believe works? So
I get it. They have really good lobbyists. Yeah. And for Coochin County, because you're in Bank Service Area 2, I think you're all in Bank Service Area 2, which means any impacts, and I think Ely, the same one that Ely is in, any impacts to any wetlands, they got to be bought within Bank Service Area 2. There's a few of them around, but like you said, they're pretty expensive. I hadn't heard that price yet. I hadn't heard what they are, so that's somewhere $2 a square foot.
Yeah.
That's
It was brutal.
Yeah. And you're only at 1-to-1 replacement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Nope. No. Good questions. So, like I said, I mean, if we just go through types, the type 1 you can farm through it. It's dry half the time, but if it rains if you got a couple times of rain in the farm, you see the corn, all of a sudden you might see sedges and cattails pop up in it too. So. Regulatory programs in Minnesota, there's several of them. I am not going to get into the jurisdiction of the Corps of Engineers right now, because we don't even know what it is. They may. Obviously, the Corps of Engineers, Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, has been some changes to what their jurisdiction is, and honestly, I don't think it really changes much in Coochin County. It's more in the prairie pothole area that it might. Isolated wetlands, but there also is something that I don't even know. We need to be trained on it ourselves, and that just happened this last fall. I don't even know if the Corps really understands it yet too. So DNR Public Waters Program, which anything that's probably on the county public waters list and the city public waters list, they could be wetlands or lakes or water bodies. The DNR has the jurisdiction. So wherever anything below that level of normal elevation of the DNR is picked, and there's a wetlands above it, we take the wetlands above it, but the below that is all DNR jurisdiction.
It's public waters.
Public waters, yeah. And it's public water wetlands. So those are not the open water ones so much, but they're probably they're the large basins, and you probably have quite a few of the PWWs are called in the county. So and then the Wetland Conservation Act, and I'm not sure what all the communities and local government thing. So local governments are the ones that implement the Wetland Conservation Act in the state of Minnesota. Some cities do, some small cities do. No townships can do it outstate of the 7-county metro. In the 7-county metro, some water districts are the LGUs because they have a lot of water, permits through the whatever comprehensive planning they have. But only counties and cities are the LGUs outstate. And a lot of cities have basically said, we don't want to deal with, especially the smaller ones, says, we don't want to deal with it, we're going to have the county do it. And so they have to sign an agreement and the county has to accept that. So, whoops. So some jurisdictional calls. So as I kind of said, Corps of Engineers, you see the red little cap, whatever that is, little fort, castle. They pretty much have jurisdiction from anything that's non-wetland to non-wetland. This may change but I don't know where their jurisdiction, I'm not going to call where their jurisdiction is. DNR has from the ordinary high, which is their jurisdiction, and the Wetland Conservation Act is anything above that to the non-wetland area. And there's just another open water map. Again, Corps of Engineers has pretty much from end to end. DNR has just public waters, and the Wetland Conservation Act has. So anything on that bottom right when you see it on where the left part is, you see that huge other wetland. That's the county jurisdiction. So again, how many jurisdictions on this one? What do you think?
3.
2.
Also Corps. Clean Water Act, the feds. And a lot of the Corps of Engineers, when they do a lot of their process for what you can and can't do is very similar to the Wetland Conservation Act. And we'll get into that about how we implement that. We call the wetlands the same. The mitigation they require is similar to ours, and so you're not buying extra for them and buying extra for the state. It's pretty much this. Once you satisfy one, you're going to satisfy the other one. So, public waters, because they have their own rules. So here I got some pictures of some wetlands that you guys probably look familiar. These are the type 7s, and you're driving by, you might not say they're wetland. Those are considered type 7s. Any citizen driving by might say, well, there's no open water, there's no ducks. But those are considered wetlands, and because they have that water in the beginning of the growing season. And they have the vegetation. There's reed canary, there's hydrology indicators. So trees their roots, they don't go down. If it's really wet, they'll stay top. It's called buttress roots. And so that's an indicator of being really wet. And a lot of cedar swamps have that. So another one, obviously, the bog, type 8s. So like any citizens driving by might not think that they're wetland. So.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
How does beaver dams and things like that affect?
Beaver dams under the Wetland Conservation Act, you can take them out. Just back to what they were previous, 100 years ago, 50, 20, whatever the years. You can't make them, you can't take it out further. But they're considered under the Wetland Conservation Act a no loss.
So it doesn't create a new wetland then?
Right, and you drain it back to what it was. And there's no time limit on that. So if that beaver dam's been there for 100 years, take it back to what it was.
So this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
could-
something we talk to the DNR about, just be careful when you do it, because any downstream effect,
Yeah.
if you cut the dam out or blow it up where your excavator, pull it out of there, you are liable for any downstream effect. So if it floods out someone's property, if it takes out their dock, whatever, you could be held liable for it.
So the county went bankrupt, trying to drain, especially the western part of the county, with digging ditches that are still there, right?
Yep.
And
Like it
I think
was
there's some discussion about filling those back in. To what end or what value that has, I have no idea. But I always wondered if had they not drained those, I mean, did it make any difference ultimately in the end? And is there any discussion further about filling those back in? I hope not.
It would be up to the county. I didn't get into the wetland banking portion of it, but there's things that can be done to restore wetlands back to what they naturally were. Lake of the Woods is working with the DNR on the properties north of Red Lake that are kind of in the county and in the state-owned lands. Same thing. They tried to ditch them. Those stubborn Norwegians that came out and thought they could drain all of this, and they're considered as partially drained because they're not natural. So there are some opportunities potentially to restore them. It takes a lot of engineering to figure out. You don't want to flood anybody out. We look at all that. So potentially there's some options, and that might be where the county looking at some restoration areas.
Do you get paid for that?
No. What? No. But
That's a different discussion.
That's a different discussion.
That's a different discussion then.
Sounds like February.
Well, so what the wetland banking program is landowners have restored areas on their property, and they have to go through a process. Typically the easiest ones to restore are those fields, like I showed you, that type 1 field that they put tile in there, drained it, pull the tile. You're going to get a wetland to come back. But there's engineering because we have to make sure you don't flood the neighbor. Because back in the day, they don't follow property lines. We got to make sure, so we got to get the right elevations, and we can't flood people downstream. So there's a lot of engineering. So that's a landowner has to pay for all that. So I'm just going for the landowner. There's also vegetation management. You're going to seed it down to some natives. You're going to manage it and keep it as natives. And in 5 years, you might have, say it's a 20-acre wetland that you restored, you may have 20 acres to sell to people. So those are the ones that you guys are buying credits from. Can it be done as a county and a city? I think, yeah, they can. It just little upfront money is going to be needed to do it.
Well, that's why, to me, I don't understand. If to whom do these wetlands have value? To whom are they valuable to? The state? Why doesn't the state manage the bank program then and provide funds for counties like Cooch that are over this crazy acreage and make it easy, because the regulatory environment is, I still don't understand how it got set up and why it is the way it is, but it makes it very, very difficult.
We do as a state, we do for public roads. So this legislature has set Bowser the authority to restore wetlands and for public road projects, county, township, city roads. So we have stuff scattered around the state for areas that have to buy from. So yeah, we've been, and we don't get a lot of money from the legislature for it. Sorry. Which we get, but it's a process. So when we have our engineers do it, we have all that upfront costs. A lot of there's some landowners that are able to do it themselves. Value, the state doesn't have that much money to be able to go buy wetlands. So if they have, there might have been, if there's got to be some exceptional resource to them. Are they threatened endangered species out there? They have to have some value for the general public to be able to spend the public taxpayer dollars to go buy it.
But to put a monetary price like $100,000 on an acre, how does that work?
It's all driven.
I'm sorry,
No, I get it. I understand. It's all driven by demand. And we don't have, Bowser does not have any control of what these private citizens are selling their credits for. Yeah.
Oh.
We're able to negotiate with them a little bit because we do buy from the private when we run out of road bank money. We call it road bank. When we run out, so we can go buy from them, depending on, I think also, depending if it's a bonding year or which we can go buy directly. But we kind of negotiate them down because we're buying a big chunk. But a lot of people are coming in, like the hospital in town had to go buy 7 acres, I think it was, 7.5 acres of credit for the impacts for the hospital. And it's hard to restore wetlands in this part of the state. But 90,000 is ridiculous. But it's demand. Yeah.
Well, I think Kuching should only have to pay 1/10 of a credit, being that we have such a large amount of wetland.
The legislator. I understand that. I get that. Some counties in the past have back when, in the early 2000s, I want to say, have written comprehensive wetland management plans. And that gave the counties a little more flexibility in lowering their requirement to replace, depending on the quality of these areas. Not to get on to 1/10. But the state would approve it, but you're stuck with the Corps of Engineers maybe not agreeing with it.
Well,
But they,
would
depending on their
it be
jurisdiction.
easier just to pay the fine, or spill it in and pay the fine?
No. No. Austin's going, holy crap, no.
All I know is she gave the, no, yeah. But talk to me after.
It'll be a lot of time and effort. No, it won't be.
Okay.
But I understand. But there's ways that the legislature has, the Wetland Conservation Act has allowed some more flexibility in your mitigation. But it's a process that the county is, the comprehensive wetland management planning, which you said they have one, but you said the Corps wouldn't approve it or something.
Yeah, I mean, I gave you guys a copy of our wetland flexibility plan, but it never went anywhere because we
Corps.
couldn't get all the agencies to agree to accept that flexibility plan and provide us that. So it just kind of died because the definition of what the Corps' jurisdiction was
Everything.
Extended further than maybe what it does today.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
And but then that always changes. So you really need to have all the jurisdictions agree because eventually it'll create an issue for
Yeah.
you. So,
Yeah.
but maybe today there might be some opportunity there, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And Bowser obviously hasn't reviewed that plan in a long time.
Oh,
Yeah. And
when I came here in 2014, it was in the back. Nobody really done anything for it for at least 5-6 years.
Yeah. So if there was a effort to go about that, it would require new
All
review and acceptance from these agencies. So it's
Not to say
nothing
it can't be
simple.
done, but yeah.
It'd be quite a process, and I think there's a push for not having that flexibility from the southern part. Some of the special interests don't want to see that, right? So.
I mean, but if it's a way if maybe allowing some more protection in some of the areas, if there's a protection allowed in some of it, there might be. So, Minnesota's so diverse. You've got this area, you got the driftless area in the southeast, you got the Red River Valley, you got the Rock County that has one wetland. It's so diverse. It's hard to write a law that fits one. But they've made modifications for you guys. Is it good enough? Doesn't sound like it, but it's what we got now. So
All right.
I got more.
Okay.
So a little bit about the Wetland Conservation Act and how the county and the city implements it. We don't have to get too much of it. So basically, wetlands. The gist of the scope of the Wetland Conservation Act is that they must not be drained or filled wholly or partially, unless replaced by restoring. Creating should be crossed out because we're not really creating any more wetlands of at least equal or greater public value. So that's the gist of the wetland conservation. No net loss. These are just some examples. I can go through this pretty fast. So again, the bill regulates draining and filling and some excavation. It's administered by LGUs, SWCDs. Some SWCDs are the LGU. A lot of them in the Red River Valley are the SWCs, not the counties. It kind of varies depending on if the county wanted or not, or whichever way.
And this counts even within the corporate city limits of a community. Like we've got, even within when the Good Sam was built, they had a big fight.
I know.
Which made no sense to a lot of local people. They just did not understand how that, why it would impact the community. The actual corporate city limits should be exempt from all that, but
it's not, and the city is the one that administers within the city limits.
Yeah.
So, because they want to, because basically when it passed, you guys wanted to keep that jurisdiction yourself. You wanted to have that ability. Still got Austin and I to review stuff, and so I know, yeah.
And if you just do it and don't tell anybody, you'll be fine, right?
Oh, no, you won't. I think you guys might know some locations in the city lately that,
Yeah,
yeah,
not too far.
yeah. Like I said, the oversight is done by the Board of Water and Soil Resources. And I'm the one, like I said, I'm the wetland specialist for the area. So and there's our authorities. There might be some new ones. This might not have been updated since the last 2024 statute update, but that's the statutes. The boundary of a wetland, like I said, is what the Corps of Engineers manual, and they have regional supplements. So basically, they're geared towards different part. Your delineation of a wetland is going to be different than the Red River Valley because you're in the Northeast, they're in the Midwest, or they're in the Great Plains. So, I mean, just because of landscape, we realize that. So, what's allowable in Louisiana is not the same thing that's allowable here. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. I should say Utah or something. So there are differences with that. But basically, the standard is to avoid the wetland, minimize it, and if you have to replace, you got to go through sequencing, which I'll get into. And enforcement is done by the conservation officers. They have right to issue cease and desist or stop work orders on a project, and they are the ones that issue the restoration orders or replacement orders if they can't restore it and they got to buy credits. So, and an application, there's a joint application, and it's the same application for the Corps of Engineers. So you're not like filling out a separate one for them; it's the same one. So we've been able to work with them on the same application. And like I said, that goes to Matt, it goes to Kelly in the city. For those applications. Whoops, gotta go back. Oops, went too fast. So basically, again, the purpose of the Wetland Conservation Act is no net loss. If you impact one, you're gonna have one. We try to avoid loss of wetlands. We increase the diversity, quantity, and quality of the wetland. We avoid impacts. If we can avoid them, we replace. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the purpose of the Wetland Conservation Act. And it very similarly follows the Corps of Engineers. So, like I said, just because you're eligible for the Wetland Conservation Act, you don't have to go through a whole different process for the Corps. It's the same parallel process. Only they have feds involved. Again, we regulate draining, all types of wetlands, filling of all types, excavation of a certain types. Like we would regulate the 3, 4s, and 5s. The wetter wetlands, and excavation if it drains or converts the wetlands. Some of this got a little bit changed, but it regulates it. But there may be some exemptions that are eligible for it too. So just because it regulates it doesn't mean you have to replace for it. So there might be some opportunities. There's a road that got put in a wetland, dump and scoop. That's hopefully permitted. I don't know where it is.
Looks like it.
Yeah, it is at the ATV trail, isn't it?
No. That'd be a boat trail.
Yeah.
And for like on state land, the DNR, if the DNR owns if they're the state agency that's in charge of it, they are their own LGUs. So they have to do the same thing. The Wetland Conservation Act has no authority on federal lands. Corps does, but the state doesn't. So
if there's something on the national park, like the road reconstruction,
we
don't have anything to do with that.
Yeah. Again, that does not regulate use of pasture and cropland, normal farming practices. Now, putting in a ditch and a tile is not normal farming practice. Noxious weed control, incidental wetlands, where our wetlands, a lot of ponds that were dug in upland, we don't regulate that. You can fill those back in. Beaver ponds, beaver dams, we've probably created some additional wetlands, those incidental ones, we don't regulate those. Again, public waters, and we don't regulate peat mining over 40 acres. That's DNR, lands, and mineral. It's a whole other story. So again, the Wetland Conservation Act, the LGU does the administration, Bowser's the oversight, and the DNR is the enforcement. Here's some enforcement examples, I guess. We're trying to drain something and filling. So we would ask them to remove it. We're not going to ask an excavated pond person that excavated it to put it all back in, because that might do more damage. You know, we'll probably have to put them on upland, the spoil pile. We had a case like that last year. So this is what I mentioned, that it's just not the LGU going out making decisions. Your BOWS, the technical evaluation panel, TEP, you know, the Bowser, me, Austin, the SWCD, and the DNR Hydro if it affects public waters, if it's adjacent to public waters. So they are part of the TEP at that point. And they get noticed on all applications. And so, like I said, you're going to see both Austin and I in the entire county, and Matt outside the city limits. So, and the other cities have given it to the county to do. So that's why you guys are different. You wanted to keep it. The method. So the basic concept of the Wetland Conservation Act is sequencing. Can you still do your project by not impacting wetlands? Can you avoid it? Can you minimize it? Can you replace? So here's an example: guy wanted to put a driveway. You can go around those wetlands. You're fine. You don't have to impact anything. Yes, you do have some de minimis here. You know, there's potential some de minimis, which is some impacts. Initially, you wanted to go straight through the center of it. Well, Austin and I and the LGU will say, you know, can you go on the narrow end of it? Number one, it's not going to be as wet. That could be as pain of a pain in the butt to do. And so we would say we want the narrowest area, and it might be eligible for an exemption. And if it is not, if it exceeds that, then they have to mitigate, and that's buying those credits for what that impact is. So that's kind of the gist of the sequencing when we go out to a site. Can you avoid it? Can you do your project? Is it eligible for any exemptions? Can you minimize? So that's all going through our head when we're looking at sites. Applications, there's the boundary and type, and that's when we got into what is a wetland, where is the line in the ground where that wetland boundary is. Those go to the city and the county for approval. There's applications of no loss, which could be removing the beaver dam. It could be filling in a culvert's got put too high and they need to lower it down. Those are applications that are looked at. An exemption, there's multiple exemptions. There's probably 8 different exemptions. One is forestry roads. There's some qualifiers for that. Agricultural one. So there's some exemptions that maybe the project is eligible for. Some drainage maintenance, exemptions. And then obviously sequencing, which is can you avoid your project. Sometimes, and when I was in the metro, city of Delano, they had their industrial area. They got a sequencing approval for the industrial area. So basically, these are the areas that are probably lower value. You can impact. The state's not going to come in and say, or the LGU is not going to come and say you have to impact. You have to go through this whole avoidance process because we've already done it for you. That was helpful in the industrial areas for cities. And then you just get somebody, and then they just come in and Fast Now comes in and they want to build a building, and whatever their requirements are, they can build it, but they have to mitigate for it. So, but the sequencing, the avoidance part, is all done for them. And then they buy the replacement plan is buying credits. That gets done through the county and the city. And banking is an application that people want to restore some areas for banking and be able to sell to those that have impacted wetlands. And the LGUs are all responsible for that. So, some no loss criteria, because will not impact a wetland. Excavation may be limited just to stormwater ponds. You're allowed to be able to take that debris out. That it was designed to originally. Water level management. There's some temporary impacts. If it's this time of year and you can't haul the stuff out, the county and the city could give you the temporary impact, but you got to get it out in 6 months because it's frozen. There's a no loss for public entities when they want to restore some areas for wildlife and fish habitat. There's some exemptions for that, and also soil and water approved projects. Forestry, temporary crossings are allowed, as long as there's some caveats, limits to the biologic diversity of the wetland. The activity does not result in construction of dikes, drainage ditches, tiles, or building. These are temporary, but there's also an exemption for permanent. And they have to have a forest stewardship plan, and there's like a checklist of 6 questions, 8 questions. We did one a couple years ago. I can't remember.
Yeah.
That the county had to be able to get that exemption. You can't have any cabins back there. So if a landowner comes in and wants to put a forestry road in, no, I got a road here and out of my property. I want to put a cabin. Then it has to stay in forestry activity with no cabin for 10 years. After that, then they could have. Then they can. But there's like a time limit on it. So, some exemptions, again, like they're regulated, but they're exempt. Technically, for these, if the landowner knows they're exempt, they don't have to apply to the county. Well, hopefully they're exempt. If not, then we have to get involved in enforcement. So it's always good to come and talk to the guys. Calcareous fens, they're the special category that the DNR regulates. The Wetland Conservation Act doesn't. So, and you can't combine. Say you're doing a project and you want the de minimis, but you want a drainage exemption, and you're doing the same exact project. You can't combine. You get one or the other. So, again, there's a federal approvals exemption. This is flat for large utilities because they have to go through a whole requirement of their process for utilities for the feds. So there's basically, if you get the federal approval from the Corps, you're going to be fine with that. So it's an exemption. Again, the de minimis, small impacts typically to wetlands for driveways, roads. And because you are in Cooch County and also Lake of the Woods and Beltrami, and then you go south and east, they're in what's called a greater than 80% county. So in other words, more than 80% of your original wetlands are still here. Your de minimis is the highest. It's quarter acre, 10,890 square feet. You can fill. If it's not in shoreline and if it's not a certain type 7 or 8, I think. But so, it's not big, but, for a driveway, if you're crossing multiple little spots, it might be enough. So, or make it skinnier to keep that. So, you get further west and south, it drops. Roseau, right across from Lake of the Woods, is less than 50. They only get 2,300 square feet. So it drops considerably. And
it drops also if it's near public waters too.
The shoreland areas, so it drops. So, and this is what was put in the rules back in the 90s, where the counties, okay, we'll accept the Wetland Conservation Act now. Some other ones are for wildlife habitat. We've seen these where they want to excavate a pond. Certain types of wetlands are okay. We gotta make sure there's no threatened endangered species. This SWC approves that it's for wildlife. Forestry roads, like I said, solely for the purposes of silvicultural activities. They can't drain wetlands or public waters. And it's best, there's, like I said, there's a stewardship plan and then also like a checklist to go through. And if they're doing logging, they probably have that already. So now your project's not eligible for these exemptions. Now you got to replace. So that means buying those credits. And so it's basically when a landowner doesn't qualify for the no loss or exemption. And we're going to look at that first. And we're going to try to get you down there so you don't have to buy those credits. Knowing like you get a big industry, you get a Walmart coming in, or you get Menards, and they have to have their footprint. We've been able in some areas like with them to be able to shift things around because they have their blanket plan. They want to put it right here. Well, in some areas you just can't do it. Could be. So we work with them, and that's where a lot of pre-application meetings are really good because we deal with those. We work with them on that. So.
The key there, though, is when someone comes in with a plan to impact wetlands, you gotta have a plan.
Yeah.
Not, I just want to fill them.
No.
So I get ready to do something. They gotta, we get a lot of that.
Yeah.
They just want to do
speculators.
Something. Yeah.
When I was in the metro city of Rogers, they're obviously they're growing like crazy, and they wanted to fill in this 80-acre chunk or for this project. Okay, what is it? We have to know what kind of project it is and who's coming. And they said, we can't tell you yet. And I said, well, we can't approve it yet. And the Corps said the same. They need to know that too. What is the project? Because you might not, you just can't speculate and fill the whole thing and make it eligible. You have to know what the project is. So it's harder on, I get it, on developments. It's on commercial, it's harder because you want it. I get it. But we'll try to work with them as best we can. So, again, then for all replacement plans, the landowner must apply, the applicant must apply to the LGU and receive approval before impacting those wetlands. In other words, buying those credits. And part of that we look at, the hardest part is probably the sequencing, and that's usually the most discussion on any project is done. Can you avoid this? Can you minimize? Can we, especially when it comes to stormwater too, and which I think a lot of it's missed in these areas because they can't impact wetlands for stormwater, but they can use them to some extent. But there's some requirements and some things that need to be looked at, and maybe they can put in impervious pavers. Maybe they meet their 401 requirements and stuff. So, and we'll work with them as best we can. So again, sequencing is probably the hardest part of the Wetland Conservation Act. Can you avoid it? Can you minimize? Can you replace? And there's a good example, not going through, recommended, some of the repeats, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
A lot.
It's a lot.
Sorry.
Thank you. Just my last question. I won't extend this any further, but the no loss concept. You look at that map and you look at all that. We could replace 10 acres a year, and it would take hundreds of years to fill. That's the part that I think a lot of locals look at that and say, "We've got so much. Why would the no loss? Why would it apply here? Because of that's my one."
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be where the culverts and the roads got put in too high. It's going to be the beaver dams. It's going to be excavated livestock ponds that weren't in wetlands, and it's high water table here. I get it. Yeah, Lake of the Woods is the same way. St. Louis County is the same way.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, the next item is the Personnel Committee.
Mr. Chair, typically this February meeting, the Personnel Committee meets prior to look at personnel and review personnel. So just to set a date for the Personnel Committee.
Okay, and I'm looking for volunteers. Normally it's the chair, vice chair. Who else would...
Ricky, I think was...
That was from last year, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, and one person from the county, one from the city. So...
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say
Thanks
flip a
for-
coin, but I'll do it.
Thanks for the offer, though.
Thank you for volunteering, Treasurer Kelly.
Yeah.
And Ricky, you're... Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the committee will be Commissioner Roach, Citizen Hanson, Treasurer Kaler.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Mayor Dill.
All right. Mayor Dill.
I was volunteered, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
that's why I thought you were thanking me for volunteering.
And myself. Thank you. And we should, let's look for a date to meet. The next keda meeting, if it's the same schedule, the third Wednesday would be the 18th of February. How does that look for?
I'll be in session.
Pardon?
I'll be down in St. Paul.
All right.
We start on the 17th.
Okay.
10 a.m.
Thank you. So you'll get the the minutes from here and you can respond to that. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Squaba.
Yeah.
What, the dates for that, how about the Tuesday before the meeting, or do we need, the 16th is President's Day. I don't know how that affects you.
Would it be proper to meet, could we meet an hour or an hour and a half before the regular meeting? Or do we need more time than
We
that?
can. I have an 8 o'clock meeting, and if it's like the one today, it went on forever. Anyhow, so the keda meeting's at 10. So do you want to meet at 9?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, next item is the director's report. Director Nevenin.
In the interest of time, just would note that after last month's meeting with Dr. Taylor, followed up with the developer's agreement with him regarding the sale of that parcel of property for his project, and looking for him to review that, and when he does so, then we'll bring it back to for signature. And that's it. Let's leave it at that.
All right. Any questions? So Director Nevenin. Number 7, the items, city and county updates. We can start with Mayor Dill.
I'm gonna volunteer Councilor Kaler.
That's only fair.
It's only fair.
That's only fair after the committee. Let's see what we. The biggest news is we've appointed a new police chief in the last couple of weeks, so he's getting his feet wet there, and I think he's going to do a fine job, Mr. Worley. And on a side note, I'll throw in a little Elks business here. We had Soup for Troops this weekend, which was very successful. People came, earned some money, people had a good time. Finally, not much of your special concoction left, Al. So then we had the hoop shoot on Sunday, which we had a fair turnout, not the biggest we ever had, but that went good. But as far as the city, then we're still working on finalizing the lease with the county for the law enforcement center. I do believe that we're unforeseen circumstances. We got a little extra time to work off the lease for them, but they can cover that. That's about all I can really think of. Doing winter business, plowing, salting, sanding, all that stuff.
The ambulance hearing is February 24th at 5:30?
5:30.
Okay, it was in the newspaper as 5:30 and 3 o'clock, so that's why I asked.
We have our county board meeting at 3
At
with
3.
with the meeting after our county board meeting.
Very good, thank you. From the county,
Well, our jail got postponed on opening, so now it looks like it's going to be March 14th, I believe it was. They had a hiccup there for finalizing some of the punch lists that did not get done. So we had to go back and reschedule, and that was the only time 911 and all the computer guys could all get together at the same time to switch over all the computer system to make it go to the new jail. So hopefully March we will be open and running.
all right.
The inmates aren't getting antsy, are they?
We don't care about that. They should stay in the old end up there and 45 years ago stuff instead of giving them pleasures. Easiest thing is if you don't want to be in there, don't do the crime.
Yeah.
And from the end of the rainbow, Citizen Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did chat with the administrators in North Home and Big Falls, and they've just told me that it's just a quiet time of year, and they're planning for next spring, or for in a few months. And Little Fork sent me a whole list of items that they've accomplished over Christmas and New Year's, and I made a special copy to bring it here today. And so I wouldn't forget it. I put it right by the kitchen door. When I walk out, I'll have it.
But you walked out backwards.
The other thing I'd just like to bring up, Mr. Chair, and is, and certainly because I'm involved with North Star Electric, it serves at least half of the county and in all our rural area. With the help of the bank that we do business with, called CoBank, we match them dollar for dollar, and they put up $5,000, and so did we, and it went to 4 new chairs at Chemotherapy and Infusion Treatment Center at Rainy Lake Medical. And there are these huge chairs. Once you get chemo, or once you're getting chemo, you're cold. At least the ones I had. And then what they do is they put a blanket in an oven and bring you that blanket. Well, these chairs will heat you up. They'll give you a massage at the same time. They allow people with disabilities to get in them. So they bought 4 of them, and they're $6,000 a piece. And they're in there, and I would urge anybody that has to travel for chemo or any other kind of infusion to check with them, because they'll save you a ton of miles. The staff is outstanding. It's on the east end of the hospital, and they're always busy. It's amazing how many patients they have. And they also help participate in the cancer walk. And I know the last year we had anybody that lives in Coochin County, if their address is Coochin, they'll give them $300 for expenses, just for gasoline or for any other kind of travel expenses they have. And this year was over 80 people.
Wow.
So when you stop and think about it, it was a lot of money raised, and now the people are getting infusions, can do it right here in International Falls.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
I have one quick thing. I wanna thank the Board of Soil and Water. It's I'm getting really educated on it, and they have sorry, I just got a call. I've been trying to give more money to the, once you realize their job, I would much rather have the Board of Water and Soil working on a project than the DNR. And so if there's any way I can keep supporting it, so
Road projects.
Real answers.
Road projects, road money, yeah. Yeah, we are not DNR. Everybody thinks we're DNR. Yeah, we are not DNR. All of our money goes to locals. Yeah.
That's my point is, we give you money, we see results.
Yeah.
We don't see more employees showing up and then, oh, we don't have any money. Oh,
Yeah.
shoot, what are you guys doing? So, but anyway, I appreciate all you're doing. And, hopefully we'll figure out how to recoup some of these dollars and reuse them we're going to get results, but that's the future.
Thank you.
But thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any other comments?
I just forgot the biggest thing, we're in the Miss Icebox Day celebrations. How could I have forgot to bring that up? They're getting what they hope for.
Cold weather.
And God bless those people that are making the snow sculptures or ice sculptures out there today.
All right. Thank you very much for your attendance. You know when the next meeting will be, and have a good day.